Imagine this. You're carpooling to work with a couple of colleagues for a standard overnight shift.
Right, just a normal night.
Exactly. The vibe in the car is quiet, maybe a little tired, but completely normal. You pull into the parking lot, you clock in, and head to your stations.
Yeah.
But then a petty argument breaks out over something incredibly small, like a missing flashlight attachment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and suddenly the tension just skyrockets. One of your coworkers looks right at you and delivers these terrifying words. No one's going home today.
God, that's chilling.
It is. And moments later, that trivial argument ends in fatal gunshots. It sounds like a scene from a thriller, but I mean, this is exactly what happened.
Unfortunately, yeah.
We are going to dissect the psychology behind this fatal shift today and, how normal environments just become lethal. But first, a quick reminder to subscribe to the show so you never miss these deep dives.
Definitely do that.
And actually, speaking of keeping you informed, give us the brief update on that Martin Stevens versus OpenAI case before we jump into today's main event.
Right. So the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI situation,
Right.
it basically remains in a voluntary quiet period.
Okay.
Yeah. So as of right now, there's been no lawsuit filed and no dead man switch has been activated.
Remind me, the dead man switch is the automated thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's that automated security protocol designed to mass release private data if the user suddenly goes offline or unresponsive. But yeah, none of that has happened. We are continuing to monitor the quiet period closely and we'll keep you posted the moment anything changes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, our mission for this deep dive is to look at a tragic, real-world incident. The fatal shooting at a Minnesota Amazon facility back in June of 2024.
Right.
We're exploring the underlying psychology of how seemingly trivial disputes bypass our normal reasoning, and just morph into lethal violence.
It's a really important topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And from there, we'll map out the comprehensive strategies for workplace violence prevention, pulling heavily from environments where violence is, quite frankly, a daily hazard, like healthcare and also state transportation departments.
Yeah, because they've had to figure this out.
Exactly. We want to understand the exact mechanics of human escalation and how organizations are desperately trying to engineer physical spaces to stop it.
Because, the modern workplace is where most of us spend the majority of our waking hours, right?
Yeah, easily.
And treating workplace violence as this random lightning strike is just a dangerous misconception. Understanding the anatomy of how these situations build like those micro-escalations, that's the absolute foundation of prevention.
So to understand those micro-escalations, we need to look at the timeline of what happened at the Lakeville Amazon Fulfillment Center on June 29, 2024.
Right.
This incident involved 3 coworkers. There was Mohammed A. Harid, who was 24 at the time, Ahmed Ibrahim Quarif, who was 22, and a third colleague referred to in legal documents just as Witness 1. So they carpooled to their overnight shift in Witness 1's car. And Harid actually possessed a permitted firearm, but he left it in the car while they went inside the massive warehouse to work.
See, the presence of the weapon in the periphery of the environment is a really critical variable here.
Even if he wasn't holding it.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't on his person, but it was anchored in the shared space of that carpool. It's always there in the background.
Wow, okay. So at about 1 a.m., they take a scheduled break. Harid goes out to the car and notices that a flashlight attachment is missing from his gun.
Right.
And he immediately accuses Quarif and the witness of stealing it.
Just right out of the gate.
Yep. Both of them firmly deny taking it, of course.
Yeah.
So the seed of the conflict is officially planted, but they agree, they'll look for the missing part again on their next break, and they go back inside.
And this right here, this is a textbook incubation period.
How so?
Well, you have an overnight shift, right? Which inherently disrupts your circadian rhythms and elevates your baseline cortisol levels. You're already stressed.
Oh yeah, night shifts are brutal.
Totally brutal. So you pair that physiological fatigue with a perceived betrayal by the very people you're trapped in a carpool with. And that tension just stews for 3 solid hours.
3 hours of just working next to them.
Exactly. The brain is just running loops, reinforcing this narrative of victimhood and anger.
Jeez. So at 4 a.m., they head back out to the parking lot for their next break. They search the car. Still, no flashlight.
Right.
This is the ultimate moment of escalation. Witness 1 comes up with a perfectly logical, modern solution. He suggests they call security to review the parking lot surveillance footage just to see if someone else broke into the car while they were inside.
Which makes total sense.
Right. But Harid refuses. He flat out rejects the logical path to the truth. And instead, he issues that ominous warning, No one's going home today.
And a physical altercation follows almost immediately after that refusal.
Right.
Hare and Cariff get into a brief fight. The witness actually manages to break it up. But minutes later, a second fight breaks out. And this is when Herod pulls the gun from his waistband.
And Harid later claimed he had to act in self-defense because Cariff, quote, advanced on him.
Right, that was his claim.
But the surveillance footage from the parking lot tells a completely different, much darker story. The footage shows that Herod actually threw the first punch in the initial fight.
Wow.
Yeah. At no point did he attempt to retreat, despite having multiple clear physical avenues to do so.
He had ways out.
Plenty of them. And during the second fight, as Cariff tries to grab the gun just to defend himself, Cariff fires a shot. It hits an unoccupied car.
Okay.
Both Cariff and the witness scream out, don't shoot, or don't shoot me. But then, and this is the craziest part, 3 to 5 agonizing seconds pass.
Which is an eternity in a scenario like that.
A massive amount of time in a firefight. Herod fires again, and this time, he strikes Cariff in the chest, killing him.
It's just awful. And the legal resolution arrived in May of 2026. Herod, who's now 26 years old, was sentenced by Judge Rochelle Wahi to 128 months in prison. So over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, after pleading guilty to second-degree unintentional murder. Dakota County Attorney Kathy Keena pointed out the absolute collective bewilderment of the community, really highlighting the senselessness of a death over such a minor accessory.
Wait, let me stop you there, because the psychology of this is what's really bothering me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand the overnight shift is a pressure cooker. You're exhausted, you're in close quarters with people you didn't necessarily choose to be friends with.
Right, it's tough.
But we all get into petty arguments at work. Someone steals a lunch from the break room, someone takes credit for your idea, people yell, they hold grudges, they might even quit. What fundamentally breaks down in the human brain that bridges the gap between a missing flashlight and a murder?
What's fascinating here is how the introduction of a weapon entirely bypasses normal human conflict resolution.
Oh, really?
Well, evolutionarily. When humans have a grievance, our brains seek arbitration. We want fairness. We go to a manager, we look at evidence, we appeal to a third party.
Like checking the cameras.
Exactly. Witness 1 offered perfect arbitration, let's check the security cameras. But a weapon provides this illusion of absolute authority.
Huh.
Herod's refusal to check those cameras is the exact psychological pivot point, where logic was replaced by pure hostile intent. He wasn't looking for his flashlight anymore, he was looking for retribution.
Wow.
The gun basically short-circuited his brain's arbitration process. He stopped seeing coworkers he could reason with, and he just started seeing enemies blocking his exit.
It is terrifying how fast the brain can rewrite a social contract
Yeah.
when a firearm just provides a shortcut to power.
It really is. And while that warehouse parking lot shooting was the sudden catastrophic anomaly between coworkers, if we want to understand the true systemic scope of workplace violence, we actually need to look away from these rare events.
Where should we be looking?
We need to look at industries where violence is a daily, almost normalized hazard. Specifically, we have to examine the healthcare sector.
The data from the MedPro group on this is staggering. Healthcare professionals are 5 times more likely to encounter violence on the job than workers in any other field.
5 times. That's huge.
5 times. And this spans a massive spectrum. I mean, we're talking about verbal insults, patients spitting on nurses, physical slapping, scratching, all the way up to fatal shootings by patients or their families right in exam rooms.
And as shocking as that 5 times multiplier is, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, the AHRQ, notes an even more alarming reality.
Which is?
There is a massive underreporting crisis. Those official numbers represent just the tip of the iceberg. The daily reality is likely drastically higher.
Okay, put yourself in this position for a second. Imagine you're sitting at your desk at a corporate job, and a client walks up and slaps you across the face, or spits on you.
Right, you'd be outraged.
Reporting it seems like a baseline human instinct. You call HR, you call security, you press charges. Why on earth would healthcare workers actively hide the fact that they're being physically assaulted on a daily basis?
It seems completely counterintuitive. But the research points to very specific psychological and systemic reasons for this silence.
Like what?
Well, first, there is a deeply ingrained occupational culture where workers accept physical abuse as simply part of the job.
Part of the job.
Yeah, it's viewed as a hazard of the trade rather than a criminal act. And second, and this is a really profound psychological phenomenon, there's the weaponization of empathy.
Wait, how does empathy become a weapon against the person feeling it?
It's because healthcare workers possess a highly developed theory of mind. They can expertly map out the stress, the grief, and the altered mental states of their patients.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they know a patient's family might be experiencing the literal worst day of their entire life. So when an assault happens, the worker's empathy actually suppresses their own self-preservation instinct.
They feel bad for the person attacking them.
Exactly. They internally forgive the bad behavior, reasoning that the aggressor is just sick or scared or maybe reacting to a medication.
So they rationalize the abuse away because they understand the pain behind it?
Precisely. And then add to that the brutal logistical hurdles.
Sure.
Oh, massive bureaucracy. The reporting structures in many hospitals are so heavy. A nurse at the end of a grueling 12-hour shift simply does not have the cognitive bandwidth to sit down and fill out an hour of complex paperwork over a pinch or a shove.
I mean, I wouldn't want to either.
Right. And finally, there is a very real fear of retaliation.
Really? Retaliation from who?
From the administration or even peers. Workers worry that officially reporting an incident might flag them as difficult or negatively affect their professional licenses or, just ruin their reputation as a team player.
So they just absorb the trauma, swallow it, and clock in the next day.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, whether it's an escalating dispute in an Amazon parking lot or an unreported assault in an emergency room, the underlying issue is identical.
What's that?
A failure to recognize and intervene in warning signs. In healthcare, the warning sign is the cultural acceptance of the minor assault. In the Lakeville case, the warning sign was the rejection of logic and the declaration that no one was going home.
Wow, yeah.
Both environments lacked a functional firebreak to stop the spread of aggression.
We've seen what happens when logic fails in a parking lot, and we've seen how empathy is used against workers in a hospital. Since we cannot control human psychology in a crisis, people are messy and unpredictable, how do we engineer the physical world to stop them?
It's a great question.
That's where the Minnesota Department of Transportation's approach comes in. They have built a comprehensive workplace violence prevention and response plan that treats human violence not as a mystery, but as a manageable environmental hazard.
It is a highly structured methodology. The guidelines outline a continuum with 5 distinct phases.
Which are
preparedness, mitigation, response, reunification, and recovery. It basically operates on the exact same logic as planning for a chemical spill or a severe weather event. You build the infrastructure before the crisis hits.
Let's dig into that mitigation phase, specifically how environmental design dictates human safety. It is fascinating how the layout of a room can de-escalate a situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Security committees analyze lighting, they eliminate isolated work areas, they control access to cash. They also heavily target the psychology of piggybacking.
Which is such a common issue.
This is a huge vulnerability. You swipe your badge to open a secure door, and out of sheer politeness, you hold that door open for the person walking up behind you.
Yep, we all do it.
Your social conditioning to be polite just completely overrides your security training, and you might just be letting an active threat straight into the building.
It is a perfect example of how everyday social courtesy becomes a fatal vulnerability if you aren't situationally aware. But environmental design is only half of the mitigation equation.
What's the other half?
The human interaction. MedPro outlines 10 critical domains of de-escalation that are vital for anyone facing a hostile individual. Some are purely physical-like, respecting personal space, never turning your back, and always maintaining a clear physical path to an exit.
The verbal tactics are just as crucial, though. Establishing clear verbal contact and being extremely concise.
Right, keep it short.
Because when someone's adrenaline is spiking, their cognitive processing drops. You cannot use complex sentences or corporate jargon. You have to keep the message incredibly simple, identify what they want, and reflect how they are feeling.
And this leads to one of the most mechanically effective techniques, which is agreeing to disagree while setting clear limits.
Explain the mechanics of that. Why does agreeing to disagree actually work on an angry person?
It comes down to an amygdala hijack.
Okay.
When a person is deeply hostile, their prefrontal cortex, which is the logical part of the brain, is largely offline. The amygdala, the threat center, is driving the bus. So if you argue back, you're demanding they use logic they currently do not have access to, which just causes massive frustration and further escalation.
That makes total sense.
By agreeing to disagree, you instantly remove the conversational friction. You validate their right to feel upset without validating their hostile behavior.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it deactivates their brain's threat response just enough to lower the temperature and allow you to exit. Surviving the interaction is the goal, not winning the argument.
So what does this all mean? It's like doing a social fire drill.
I like that phrase.
Right. We drill for actual fires, hoping they never happen. We map out the emergency exits, we check the extinguishers, but we rarely build muscle memory for navigating hostile human behavior.
Very true.
We just assume that if someone screams at us, we'll naturally know the right thing to say. But you won't. Your own brain will panic. You have to evaluate your own workplace right now. Do you know where the physical blind spots are? Do you know the psychological blind spots of your coworkers?
Building that baseline situational awareness is just critical. But we must also pivot to the terrifying reality. What happens when environmental design and de-escalation completely fail?
Yeah.
What happens when you are faced with a situation like that Lakeville parking lot where a weapon is drawn and logic is permanently off the table?
That plunges us straight into the response phase.
Mm-hmm.
When fire breaks fail, active aggressor protocols rely on the run, hide, fight methodology.
We've all heard it, but the details matter.
The specific execution of these steps is literally a matter of life and death. First, run. If you have a safe path, get out immediately. You leave all your belongings behind. And this brings up a huge cognitive hurdle, actually.
Normalcy bias.
Exactly. People die in emergencies because of something called normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias is an incredibly dangerous psychological phenomenon. When confronted with a sudden horrific threat, the human brain often refuses to process the novelty of the danger.
It just rejects it.
Yeah, it desperately clings to everyday routines.
Your brain literally tells you, it's time to leave the building, which means I need to shut down my laptop, grab my coffee mug, and put on my coat.
Which is wild when you think about it.
During an active threat, you have to consciously, forcefully override that instinct. You drop everything and run. And as you run, the guidelines stress keeping your hands completely visible with your fingers spread.
That's super important for the police.
It isn't just about balance. It is crucial for first responders entering the chaotic scene so they instantly recognize you are not concealing a weapon.
Yeah.
Furthermore, you completely avoid elevators, which can turn into fatal traps.
And if running just isn't an option, you transition to hide. And you do not just quietly sit under a desk. You aggressively barricade doors with the heaviest furniture available.
Whatever you can find.
Yes. And you must silence your cell phone completely. A phone on vibrate can sound like an alarm bell in a silent, tense room.
Yep.
Also, if you are hiding in an exterior room with a window, you use whatever is available to create paper signs to silently signal your status and the number of people inside to the first responders outside.
Again, as an absolute last resort, if your hiding place is breached, you fight. The protocol is clear here. If you are in immediate danger and cannot retreat, you use overwhelming aggressive force with environmental objects.
Just everything you have.
Fire extinguishers, heavy chairs, tools. You disrupt the aggressor's nervous system with whatever you have.
And you must mentally prepare for the interaction with first responders, too. This is a reality that shocks many people who haven't been formally trained.
Yeah, they behave differently than people expect.
Totally. If law enforcement enters an active threat environment, they will not stop to help the injured.
Wow.
Their singular overriding objective is to run toward the sound of gunfire and neutralize the threat. They're walking into a highly volatile, potentially lethal situation.
You seem to have to stay out of their way.
Exactly. They might shout aggressive commands, they might point weapons in your direction, and they might physically push you to the ground for your own safety. You must override your shock, cooperate entirely, and just not interfere with their movement.
Which brings us to the grueling aftermath. Reunification and recovery. How does a workplace ever bounce back from this kind of shattered reality? You don't just send out a memo and expect everyone to clock in on Monday.
No, recovery is an intensely complex process. One of the primary operational tools used by organizations like MNDOT is the After Action Review, or AAR.
It sounds like a military thing.
It is, yeah. It's a structured debriefing concept adopted directly from the military, conducted shortly after the dust settles. But it is critical to establish what an AAR is not.
Okay, what isn't it?
It is not a grievance session, and it is absolutely not an investigation for assigning blame.
Gotcha.
It's an objective review designed to patch the cracks in the fire breaks. It asks 4 direct questions. What went well? What can be improved? What needs to be done right now? And who needs to know this information?
It's a rapid diagnostic tool for the physical and procedural infrastructure. But then there's the human element. The recovery plans emphasize psychological first aid through programs like the Employee Assistance Program.
Right, the EAP.
This is about providing immediate stabilization and long-term psychological care. You're dealing with acute trauma. You have to help workers process the shock and slowly guide them back to a baseline state of functioning. I mean, repairing the broken glass in the lobby is easy. Repairing the psychological safety of the people who heard the gunshots is a monumental task.
The human infrastructure requires vastly more maintenance than the physical one, which brings up a final critical thought for you to consider.
Let's hear it.
We spend millions of dollars and countless hours talking about physical security badge readers, reinforced doors, and active threat protocols. But the most dangerous element in any workplace isn't a mechanical failure of those security gates. It is the silent, insidious normalization of minor aggressions. If a missing flashlight attachment can fester for 3 hours and completely bypass a person's moral reasoning to end in a murder, and if highly trained, deeply empathetic healthcare workers accept being physically assaulted as just another part of the shift, then our society has a massive cultural blind spot.
Yeah.
Emergency protocols only save lives when people feel empowered to use them early. Perhaps the true key to survival isn't just knowing how to barricade a door, but radically changing what we tolerate in our everyday interactions, long before the first punch is ever thrown.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. If you found this valuable and want to help us keep bringing you these insights, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show.